Welcome friends to another r/malicious compliance video. The one biggest thing you can do to help today is to hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. That said, our first story of the day is by Fletcher Markin. You only want me working part-time in case there isn't too much work next year? Sure. I must confess, I have a profound respect for people who do not take crap from their employers. You are my heroes, and so I hope my story can help someone else. Okay, so first some necessary background info. I live in a small country and I'm an engineer in a very niche field. Where I live, there's about 15 to 18 people in my field in the whole country. Also, unions are a good thing here and most companies are fine with unions. The employee benefits from this, but so does the employer since the rules of the game are very clear. Clear for most people, as my employer was about to find out. My story goes like this, and it took place in late 2019 until late 2020. My team consisted of 3 people, me included, and one on our team, our mentor, was ready to retire 2 years prior to this happening, but he stayed on because, codependence issues, I guess. We had 10 to 12 years experience each. We were just younger and more inexperienced than our mentor, who has 40 plus years of experience. I really envisioned us taking over the team soonish. Company is a large actor where I live, but things have not been going too great for the shareholders for some 6 months prior to all this happening. Knowing this, I decide I'll not ask for a raise in my annual performance review to show I'm a team player, and explicitly state this to my boss's boss, Mr. V, all is fine and well, for 3 months. Then the bomb drops. One fine autumn day in 2019, I was called to a meeting with my boss, Mrs. G. Mrs. G told me that they didn't expect there to be enough work to go around for my team next year. COVID-19 had not struck yet, so that wasn't the reason. So they wanted to cut me down to a part-time job, working only 80%, that would be 4 days a week, starting 3 months hence. I immediately asked if this is also the case for my other coworker and if our mentor was going to retire. Well, yes, but no. My coworker would also be offered 80%. Our mentor was going to be working 60%. And I'm like, what? He really wants to retire, Well, he's not yet, says Mrs. G, because of reasons. And stuff. Okay, so I signed the new contract, but I feel bad about it since I was really trying to be a team player and did not feel my employer was taking responsibility for us employees, but only thinking of the shareholders. I also get the feeling that they don't see me or my coworker taking over the team anytime soon, despite us not being novices in the field. I immediately start planning for the future. After this happens, I start asking around if other employees are also facing part-time employment due to no projects in 2020. As one does, you want to know how others are doing, right? Nobody else is getting part-timed, and everybody else is appalled. Just us 3. We are singled out for some reason. Some of our colleagues even say that they've had stints of no work for months without any actions taken in this regard. There is now general displeasure in my team towards our employer. Since our mentor just wanted to retire and let us do the job, there would not have been any reason to have us younger engineers working part-time, really. But no, because of reasons and stuff. Okay, so what to do? I have a family and 2 kids, mortgages and the lot, and this will be a blow to the family income. So I start planning to do some work on the side. Since I'm an engineer, I can do consulting, right? My employment contract says no. But if my employer cannot or will not offer me a full-time job, the union contracts say I can do what I want with the rest of my time, and my employer cannot interfere. I also have the right to refuse more work from my employer because I may have other obligations. Me 1, employer 0. I open up my own company, buy a domain, make a web page, start calling, writing and letting people know I'm available for consulting. Of course, I checked with the union lawyers beforehand if this was okay, which it was, totally fine. They told me that since my employer laid me off and rehired me part-time, I could do what I wanted with the rest of my time. This would not have been the case if I had requested part-time employment. Great, I go to work for myself then. Me 2, employer 0. Almost immediately after our new contracts take effect, my employer starts noticing there's more than enough work to go around and asks me to work for more hours. No, I say. Unfortunately, I have other obligations. I really didn't. I was just making a stand and forcing them to recognize their own mistake. Time passes, my savings account drains in about 3 months' time, but we managed to cut down on our expenses so it's not a rough seas, but still not smooth sailing by far. Income's a bit on the low side, although I managed to get some consulting done in my own time. I switch from sourdough bread to stale boring white bread, go from good beer to Bud Light to no beer. What you have to do, you have to do. No more fine roasted coffee from the small shop on the corner, only what sludge I can get at the supermarket and brew at home. Ugh. But this is temporary, I tell myself. And then it happens. I get a big job and start moonlighting to get it done, working evenings and weekends. And this is when poop hit the fan because word got out. I get an angry phone call from Mrs. G's boss, Mr. V, and we have a heated conversation over what I can and cannot do. The conversation was something like this, in short terms. Mr. V says, "Think of how this reflects on our company." I say, "That's not my concern here, Mr. V. I have bills to pay and mouths to feed." He says, "This is not what we had in mind." I say, "Hey, you laid me off, man. You should know the rules of the game. You cannot dictate what I do in my spare time. Perhaps you should have thought it through when you reduced my hours. You think I was happy to lose income and would not try to remedy my financial situation?" He says, "You can work more hours for us then." I say, "I have other obligations now. I can't let down my customers." Mr. V, very angry now, says, "You should consider your next steps carefully, young man." I say, "Mr. V, I shall do that. Thank you for calling." "You pompous jerk," I silently added. What then followed was a phone call from me to my union explaining the situation. Later that week, my employer got a phone call from the union lawyers who spoke to Mr. V and the HR department, telling them what they can and cannot do. And I just kept working for myself. Mr. V's now very unhappy, stops greeting me when we pass each other in the hallway. Me 3, employer 0. 2 months later, I handed my resignation. 3 months after that, I'm gone. And to rub salt in the wounds, as they say here, is that a general expression? I don't know. Something remarkable happens. My coworker, not our mentor mind you, asks if I wouldn't want to partner up and start a new company together. Yes, I say, for it was a great idea. Coworker hands in resignation a month after I handed in mine, and we start working in our own company full time. People that depend on our services are very happy about us entering the market as independent consultants. Business takes off. Me/us 4, employer 0. The aftermath: my former employer has had an opening for our jobs since August 2020. Our mentor told me last month he's finally put his foot down and is retiring at the end of the year as he's turning 70 soon. They will thus have gone from 3 people in a very niche field to 0 in less than 2 years because of bad managerial decisions. It didn't come as a surprise to me that there were no other available in the market. Since it's a niche field, I know almost every person personally, so I could have told them that everybody seemed happy with their current employer. Being a manager must suck. Oh wait, that's me now. If you gave your all for a company, you show your loyalty, you work hard, you work extra hours whenever, and they go and sweep you under some cost-cutting maneuver, would that make you immediately start looking at other possible openings? Let me know in the comments down below. And our final story of the day is by Joe Satome, A Trip Around the World in 80 Minutes. This story comes from when I worked in an inbound call center. I handled escalation calls. When someone called in regarding their service plan with complaints that can't be handled with a regular agent's authority, or the caller demanded to speak with a supervisor or manager, the call got transferred into my team's call queue and one of us handled it. Little background, I was born and raised in the Southwest. When I was a wee little child, I spoke with a very heavy stutter. It took several years and lots of patience on my mother's part to teach me how to speak normally. The outcome was that I had to enunciate all my words carefully and thus spoke without any hint of a local accent. Later during my middle school days, I got teased a lot for not having a proper accent, so I decided to teach myself how to speak with the proper accent. I watched a lot of my dad's old black and white westerns to learn the lingo. Then I started talking like Scotty from the original Star Trek series. It was fun, so I started copying other accents from TV and movies. I had over a dozen, including German Sergeant Schultz, I know nothing, pirate and badly dubbed Chinese kung fu, lots of pauses, simple phrases, and every sentence ends in ha. One bad side effect came about though. Often when I'm around a person with a heavy accent, I subconsciously begin to mimic their accent. I don't realize I'm doing it until it's pointed out. Usually the other person thinks I'm making fun of them or something. To avoid getting punched in the face, I have to do some quick explaining, without the borrowed accent. So the call. A call comes into my queue, and I answer it as normal. Kinda. I had been joking around with my supervisor while using an Indian accent, so when I answered the call, I was still using the accent. The woman caller was immediately furious. She started screaming at the top of her lungs that she had specifically demanded to speak with someone who spoke English, not well, let's just say her choice of words lay heavy on the racist side and leave it at that. Realizing my error, I dropped the accent and tried to talk with the lady normally, but she would have none of it. She continued on a horrible racist diatribe about foreign call center workers, how there wasn't any proper American English speakers anymore, and cussing me up one side down the other. Now I've handled a lot of angry calls by small-minded people, but there is one hot button I will not tolerate. The caller started insulting my parents. You wish to talk with someone who speaks English, correct? I broke in, dropping back into the Indian accent at that time. Yes. I say, not a problem. I will transfer you to someone who speaks English, but I must warn you, do not disconnect from the call for any reason whatsoever. We're experiencing a rather large call volume at this time. You're currently at the top of the queue, but if you disconnect and call back, you'll be all the way back at the bottom of the call line. And you do not want that, correct? They say, God, no. I say, very well, please stay on the line and the next available English speaker will be with you shortly. Have a most pleasant day. Then I put her on hold. It should be noted that we were not supposed to put callers on hold, but I did so that she would 1. Think she was being transferred, and 2. Make her listen to the horrible hold music. Placing a caller on hold immediately sent up a red flag in the call monitoring software. Normally a supervisor would come storming over and demand answers. My supervisor, however, had his cubicle right next to mine and had been leaning over the top when I initially fumbled the call. He had also patched his phone into my line and heard everything the caller had said. What are you doing? He asked with a wicked smile. I say exactly what she demanded. She wants to talk with someone who speaks English, then that's exactly what she's going to get, I replied with my own poop-eating grin. After 5 minutes, I took the call off hold and answered in my best Russian accent. Then on hold again, 5 minutes later, German accent, then French, then Swedish, then Mario Brothers Italian, so on and so forth. For over an hour, I kept transferring this racist witch, each time answering the phone with both good, bad, and horrible accents, speaking English. I thought for sure she would have caught on around the 30-minute mark when I spoke pirate. She didn't, so I continued. After about an hour and 20 minutes of sending this woman on a verbal tour of the world, the woman was sobbing so hard, I could barely make out her distressed words. So I went in for the kill. I answered the phone with a thick southern drawl. She was so happy. She spent a good 10 minutes telling me what a horrible experience she's had just to finally talk with someone who spoke proper English. I asked her what I could do for her, and she told me what her issue was. It was something so simple that one of the regular agents could have handled it in less than 2 minutes. Finishing up the call, the woman once more thanked me for speaking proper English. I dropped back into the Indian accent. Not a problem at all, madam. It was a pleasure to handle your call. You know, it is funny. You sound just like a woman I spoke to an hour ago. Isn't life strange? With a satisfied smile, I hung up during the scream of choking rage. Honestly, as somebody who's always fascinated by portraying different accents, I'm jealous of OP because I am no good at it. I'd love just for show being able to flip into different kinds of accents. It's honestly like a really cool party trick, or really just some goofy thing to kind of entertain yourself with. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of all these stories I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel, and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.